I'm gonna say you would be hard pressed in the history of filmmaking, all the great directors and all the great visual aesthetics and all the original approaches. You would be hard pressed to find someone with a better cinematic imagination than George Miller. I mean, this guy just thinks in cinema. He is. I mean, starting with Mad Max. Good God, just the deep-seated originality without ever sliding into affectation that he does, because he always maintains the action. He knows this balance, whereas like if I keep the action high, I can keep the imagination high without slipping into sort of affectation or self-indulgence or just sort of like twee silliness or whatever, right? If I keep the fucking action high and the energy high and people are just pumping on adrenaline so hard, I can also keep the imagination high, which is what keeps him on the other side from sliding into just sort of like douchiness. He never slides into sort of like action movie trope douchiness. It hits this sublime level of just like weird action, and it is so intoxicating, and it is just pure cinema. There's a scene in the very first Mad Max that was so simple but just like threw me for a loop, where the movie starts off with this incredible car chase sequence. He knows in every movie he ever does, he goes, I'm not gonna like slow roll it. I'm gonna start every movie I ever make with like a 20-minute action sequence.
Genius.
I love this guy. You're gonna be gasping for breath by the first line of dialogue, before the first like exchange happens, before you know a character's name. You're gonna be gasping for breath. It's so genius. There's a scene in the first Mad Max where there's this incredible car chase. We don't really know who anybody is, but we sort of and we don't even, you can already tell there's not really good guys, bad guys. There's just sort of chaos and action and pursuit. And it's so good and compelling and violent and punk and interesting. And then it cuts to our main character, Max Rockatansky, at home with his baby. And we're like, nice little moment to breathe. Oh, Max is a family man. He has a baby. Okay, this is going to be our protagonist. And then you hear this saxophone music build in the background. And it feels like it's the score. It feels like it's at the level of scoring, right? I'm hearing non-diegetic sound. I'm hearing sort of cinema sound. But then it cuts to his wife, and she is playing a giant fucking alto sax, and it is one of the most amazing cuts I've ever seen in a movie.
And from there, you were sold.
I was already sold. After that, I am just
on board, George.
But sold and then some. Just like you have me. I'm in your hands now. The person that would think to do that after a big car chase, it's just such an imaginative, an easy, cheap move that is better than anything money could buy. It's like, it is just such a, and that's what we talk about when we talk about pure cinema. It's just like, it doesn't cost anything. It can cost something, like in Furiosa, but it also, if you don't have the imagination, it's never going to happen. And this guy is just pure cinema. And I think his most important legacy, and I can't believe he's still doing it. It sucks that he might not be able to do it anymore after Furiosa. But the thing that he was able to do with the Mad Max trilogy, as that sort of broke into mainstream cinema, broke internationally into America, etc. And then with Thunder Road and with Furiosa, Thunder Road, what am I saying?
Beyond Thunderdome.
Fury Road, thank you. Yeah, Beyond the Thunderdome. Yeah, I'm getting my Springsteen mixed in there. But with Fury Road and with Furiosa, he brought this Ozploitation aesthetic into the mainstream, which is such a wonderful, weird chapter of cinema that should only exist at like New Beverly midnight screenings. This is Australian exploitation cinema from the 70s. Mad Max is probably the most enduring legacy of it. But you have like the incredible movie Wake and Fright, which is bizarrely directed by Ted Kotcheff, who also directed Weekend at Bernie's. His legacy is Weekend at Bernie's and the greatest Ozploitation film ever, Wake and Fright. Amazing director. But it's just this. It's exploitation cinema. It's violent and extreme.
Dead Alive.
And Dead Alive. Thank you. And Razorback, about a killer hog. But it brought that Ozploitation aesthetic, and it sort of ensured that it would last beyond its moment. Right. The fact that we're still getting Mad Max movies means we're still getting Ozploitation sort of vibes into the 21st century, which is amazing. Otherwise, it would just be this sort of moment in time in the 70s. So I love that he sort of ensured that aesthetic would last and would endure. I was sitting there pre-show, Joe, and I felt like I didn't think I was about to watch a movie. I haven't felt this sort of like physical excitement for a long time. I was sitting there in the movies. I started as soon as you hear the like engine rev over the Warner Brothers logo. I'm just sitting up in my seat, and it's like they just lowered the bar on a roller coaster. I'm like, I'm not about to watch a movie. I'm about to have a physical experience, like a physical experience in a movie theater. And sure enough, this guy opens with just a fucking just like 100-mile-an-hour, 20-minute action sequence. It's so fucking good. He gives you like a second to breathe, builds character so seamlessly.
The one with Furiosa's mother chasing
Furiosa
after
mother's
her captors.
Exactly.
That scene is amazing. It's
Phenomenal,
so cool,
phenomenal. He gives you a second to breathe. He understands how to use the dystopian world to his effect, which is that, hey, good news. In the dystopian future, everyone is reduced to their basic instincts, so I only need like 2 lines to build character. We're not living in the world of like, like talkative nuance. We're living in a world of survival, and so I can create this like character dynamic in 2 fucking lines, right? Like right. Mother Bear lost her cub. That's it. Done. And now Mother Bear is on a fucking motorcycle and she's coming after your ass. He is so good at just quick beat character dynamics and then back to the long action. Because he also knows the most fundamental rule of cinema going back to the earliest days, which is that action is character. You can build character through action, not just through dialogue.
And that's really where his genius is made manifest. Because, Brett, you're 100% right. He does establish character so quickly and so well. But that's not to suggest that they're somehow shallow. These
not at all. Not
incredibly
remotely.
deep characters. Furiosa might say 6 lines in this movie. But, I mean, I went on an entire arc journey with the character, because Miller's so good at communicating with his camera and with his scripts. And then Anya Taylor-Joy and some of her other cast members specifically Anya, she can really act the fuck out of her eyes, and she tells many stories with her eyes.
And how about Hemsworth?
Yeah, okay. So what'd you think of Hemsworth?
I thought he was great.
He was so fun.
He's been waiting for this role.
He had fun.
He's, as you know from the trailer, he's the bad guy, and he is bad. He's bad, but he is the perfect kind of bad guy where he has his own personal motivation. That he knows he's bad, but he's rationalized his badness as just part of the inherent badness of the world. I'm not bad relative to the world. I am in his mind, I'm a perfectly normal person relative to the world I live in, because he lost his own family, et cetera, et cetera. But then the existence of Furiosa and her mom and other characters prove that no, you don't have to sort of become that corrupted just because the world is that corrupted. But he is a relatable bad guy, and he's also like eloquent. He's doing that thing where it's like in the earlier Mad Maxes of just these sort of eloquent, almost Shakespearean speeches, this very sort of almost affected, flowery dialogue. But Hemsworth is crushing.
Roman presentation.
Here's what I want to see. Quick, I know, it might not fit in the schedule, it might not fit in the lifestyle. Hemsworth can do like Shakespeare in the Park, and I would go in a second. He can crush a monologue.
I love that.
He can crush like a flowery monologue, and it feels like vital and fucking.
Have him do Richard III.
Dude, I would
Hemsworth.
Hemsworth. Think about it, baby. Think about it, baby.
Do Shakespeare. I love that.
Think about it.
He'd be so good.
I would love that.
Ooh.
I don't think watching this movie, I was like, I don't think we know Hemsworth. I was like, oh, Hemsworth is different than I thought he was. Hemsworth has hidden potential.
It's good. Well, this is like an Aussie reclamation project. George was like, come, give me my guy, and let me show you what you guys have here. It's a fun actor who's talented.
It's Colin Farrell.
Right.
It's like when Colin Farrell did his like Hollywood trajectory, right? And kind of was like losing himself. And then he does In Bruges, and just the simple fact of getting to do his natural like accent, he was in his natural rhythms, he was just in his fucking pocket again, and then he could crush. Hemsworth, it feels like in this movie is just he found his gear. I would love to
when
see
he
Hemsworth
got the
stay in
call,
this gear.
when he got the call, can
Yes.
you imagine how happy he must have been? Like, you want me to be in the Fury Road sequel? I got to play the
And
bad
I'm the bad guy?
And then you read the script and it's like, oh, the bad guy's so funny.
Yes.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank God. Yeah, I really liked Hemsworth too. I loved the casting and I thought he did great. And I loved that Hemsworth. Okay, can I?
Please.
My favorite thing
Preach.
about Mad Max movies is the world building. Finally, a fantasy story or something that I can get behind the world building. I don't know what it is. I do know what it is. It's the meticulous care taken to every single piece of prop, costume, art direction in these movies is so amazing to see. Everything in the movie is like used parts from the previous worlds, reclaimed and reused, and every little bit is so cool and considered. I love the world that he fleshes out. I love the characters. I love the locations, and it's really fun to watch somebody sort of create their, I don't know, Lord of the Rings on the fly in a movie so successfully without any sort of source text, and he just gets to create. I love how Furiosa built off a lot of the lore elements or little pieces that we got to pick up on in Fury Road, but I don't say these kinds of sentences a lot, but like, it was so fun to learn how all this stuff happened. I was like, oh, that's how Furiosa lost her arm in the most badass way humanly possible.
The
Cool.
best way.
Oh, that's how Morton Joe did the women and the great. I loved it. I didn't know I was such a fucking fanboy of Mad Max until I'm watching Furiosa. Like, oh, I love Mad Max.
Because here's the thing:
Yeah.
we complain about in a lot of movies today, we complain about an excessive reliance on SFX. We complain about an excessive reliance on lore. But the thing is, if you check the 5 essential boxes for making a movie, you can do lore. You can do SFX. The thing with George Miller is he checks the essential boxes. He checks character, storytelling, coherent, like tight action, and then you can do whatever you want, because nobody does action sequences better than this guy, because it's not about just being bludgeoned to death by special effects. It's about the oldest old school camera techniques and editing techniques combined with current advances in special effects and a $160 million budget that he got. But he doesn't exchange innovation for the budget. He lets the budget augment his natural sort of innovativeness with the camera.
That's actually true. That's actually like true for him. I read an interview where he was talking about his filmography and how he always has to make sure the story is good, but he's excited by these different technologies. Like when the first time he saw Gollum and someone told him what mocap was, he literally said, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly now. I can tell the Happy Feet story finally."
Exactly.
You know, it's stuff like that. Like he is one of these story first, and then the tech comes, and then he knows how to utilize it because he is excited about the world he's building, the characters he's building, and I love that about George. Brett, can I just prattle? I have to prattle off a couple favorite things. Favorite things from Furiosa. Number 1, Chris Hemsworth chariot of bikes.
His chariot of bikes.
Come on.
All right, Chris Hemsworth has
chariot.
a like old school Ben-Hur chariot that's just 3 motorcycles tied together. I literally don't understand what advantage it gives him over just like a big
badass
bike, except that it looks so cool. And everybody else is like riding in on a bike, and he rides in on a chariot of 3 bikes, and it's the coolest thing you've ever seen.
Okay, number 2, History Man. Love it. There's like the oldest man in the world, and he is tattooed and written on his clothes like the history of the world in tiny texts. And you see him in that one scene. You walk into a tent and he's teaching like a group of people about, you know, how a bike fits together, and he's Chris Hemsworth, number 1 guy. I love History Man.
He has an encyclopedia tattooed on his body. It's the only thing that remains of like old human civilization, and he has to use like a magnifying glass to look at. It
was only 45 years ago, but this guy is going absolutely ham with the history of the world all over his body, which was so cool.
I loved History Man.
Okay, I mentioned how I love Furiosa's arm got cut off. That was so cool. I loved Chris Hemsworth in his team, the guy all in black with the big horns with the swamp like fan bike.
He has the Agger Drift helmet on.
Oh, I loved that guy. I love going to Bullet Town. I love the 3 towns: Gas Town, Bullet Town, and like Water Town.
Miller is so smart.
I love that.
Is so smart because he knows that like dumb is smart.
Right.
He knows like don't get sort of fanciful.
Don't be cute.
We're not trying to like George Miller's never heard of Funko Pops. George Miller is like giving you the dumbest, hardest like version of sci-fi. There's the towns are Bullet Town and Gas Town. It's the best thing you've ever heard.
Cool.
But then he'll combine that with like he knows when to play it dumb and then when to play it smart. He's so good at riding those waves. It's amazing. And you get both, and that's the most exhilarating experience. Is like you get intelligence without affectation and you get stupidity with high vision. It's the best.
Well said.
It's the absolute best.
That was it. I couldn't sleep at night if I just didn't shout out History Man.
History Man.
And and the cool chariot bike. Oh, and I love last one was when Immortan Joe proves to Chris Hemsworth that his guys will never betray him by sending the one to his death.
Yes.
That was
amazing.
So cool.
Amazing.
Anyway, the movie's very cool. Has a ton of it is like Brett said, endlessly creative, endlessly cool stuff, endlessly cinematic. And it was great. Now, Brett, I do I think the big question on everybody's mind, of course, is did you like it more than Fury Road?
I did like it more than Fury Road. It had
why?
It had you know what, Joe? I'm breaking one of my cardinal rules, which is you know how much I despise text in movies.
I was going to say
how much
when
I
I saw the text, I was like, uh-oh.
You're like, uh-oh, Brett's not gonna like this. Because he does chapters. He does 4 chapters. But the reason it worked for me, maybe for the first time ever. And the reason that I didn't hate it initially I was like, oh, fucking chapters. Here we go. The reason I didn't despise it is because I realized why I hate excessive text in movies is because it is people trying to turn a visual aesthetic into a textual, a visual medium into a textual medium because of a lack of visual ideas. And so they're trying, and so text is always easier to sort of control because I can just tell you what I'm saying, right? And I don't have to express what I'm saying visually. Whereas to me, that is not what George Miller was doing. George Miller is still expressing a fundamentally he is working within a visual medium and he's still doing everything visually. But he wanted this within the Mad Max universe. It's literally in the title there, a Mad Max saga. This is his this was more of an ancient Homeric epic version of the Mad Max universe. It's like a song that gets repeated over and over again. It's a saga. It is. So the chapters to me were playing into him doing a sort of myth, like a folkloric sort of version of the Mad Max world.
Totally.
And without at all compromising, the visual medium.
And the end confirms that.
Exactly.
When they talk about how Furiosa killed Dementis and how myth gets incorporated into history.
So it's intentional.
And of course it was intentional.
So that's why I normally don't like text, is because it feels like you've run out of ideas and so you're just resorting to text in order to because you don't think the audience is getting it or something. Whereas here it felt very intentional, very in the world of the project, and I had no problem with it. Amazing movie, one of the most fun times I've had in the movie theater in a long time.